Okay, I think we're good to go. Barbara, if you want to go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for popping on.
Thanks for popping on. First thing I'm going to say is that the meeting is being recorded, and I'll also follow up with some type of written minutes to all the captains, because I know some of you won't go and look at the recording. Okay, first of all, I want to say hi to all the Cape captains. We couldn't do it without you for sure. You're just so important out there to me and to Christy and to Lance and to Matt and certainly to all the players. So thank you. We have some new captains this season. I know Ann, I think, has captained before, but that was under the broad wing, I think, of Joe, right? I think you were captain long ago. And Chris is here, right? I think I saw her picture. Yeah, welcome, yep. Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very young and very energetic.
Oh, I'm not that young, but thank you.
Well, you're young, yeah.
Not as young as you think.
If you're young enough to be my daughter, you're young. And then we've got Shannon St. Pierre, who is as out of Willie's and will be captaining one of the mixed teams there. Welcome, Shannon. We're looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, on the call, we also have Lance Anderson, who is the president of the Eastern Massachusetts USGA State Association. He does a lot for us, I think, that we don't really see. He provides governance, which is a big word, but it's something that's fairly important for Eastern Mass and the Cape and the Islands. And his primary responsibilities are growth, program development, and to foster communications. And he also has a lot to do with our regulations, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. He's also president USGA League Chair. And then, of course, there's Christy, who I think most of you have met, have seen maybe really in person, who has been my boss for last year. And she has certainly taken over the reins very strongly and I think she's figured everything out now. So next year should be even more fun. Lance and Christy, do you have any comments you want to make, up front before I start talking? Lance?
Just welcome everybody. I'm glad you're here for kickoff to the fall/early winter seasons. So thank you for all you do to help grow tennis in the Cape.
Yeah, and kudos to the Cape and Barbara and all of you guys through 2021 and through 2020. You guys in all of the local areas had one of the only places that actually had growth during COVID. So,
yeah.
So we appreciate everybody's still playing tennis out there on the Cape.
I know they probably find it hard to believe, but during the winter season last year, I guess from 2020 to 21, I hope I got the years right, but we had 25% more people playing over that winter than we did the winter before. And that was in stark contrast to some of the other areas where they have really had a tough time with clubs closing down and people not being able to travel. I think for us, and given our ages, I think all we did was play tennis. I don't think we did anything else. We also had a very, the clubs here were incredibly good in maintaining strong protocols. So people felt comfortable going in and playing. They did not love the masks, but they were out in the court with them on. So thank you all for that. And then on an overall basis, we're still doing pretty well. I tried to run the numbers and it gets a little hard with the COVID stuff, but we're about 90% back to where we were in 2019. Our biggest losses in the men, and we're working on that. I just don't know what quite the problem is there, but we've lost about maybe almost a quarter of them. But the women in the mixed are holding up pretty strong. So thank you for that. So we're doing well, and that's what it's all about, is getting us all out there and playing tennis. And then I want to make the congratulations here. We had a spectacular 65 and over season, and I think you all know this, but we have 3 Cape teams going to the 65 and over National Invitational down in or out in Arizona. The women's 65 and over 6-0, Barbara Penn. And granted, we didn't have to go to the sectionals, but I give us a lot of credit for playing very hard here on the Cape and being very competitive. I'm sure Barbara's team will do well. And then we also have the women's 65 and over 7-0, Pam Walden and Maureen Mehta. I think this is the first time we've had a 7-0 team going. And this team is very enthusiastic. I think they almost did not even expect to win at the sectionals. And then they swept the finals 3-0. So I think maybe they were relaxed and happy and had a good time and they did well. And then last but not least, and I'm sorry that Jim Bisceglie is not in this call, but our reigning men's 65 and over 7-0 champs are going back to defend their, oh, Shannon, is that Shannon?
Hello.
Well,
See, I do have a face. I'm here.
Okay, I hope you stopped. Anyway, Jim Bisceglia's 65 and over 7-0 team is returning to, they're going back to Arizona to defend their 2019 championship. So it's going to be an exciting time with 2 teams there one weekend and 1 team there the next weekend. And I hope someday all of you, get to be my advanced age and have a chance to go to the nationals at some point. But we're looking forward to maybe getting another winner this year. The next part, and I think this you can probably just, I'll leave in the minutes, but there's a lot of general addresses. I know you all know how to reach me on email. I also have an official address, which is at it's Cape Cod League at newengland.usta.com. That just goes into my USTA mailbox. We also have a league information website. That I need to go over a little bit more when I get a little more familiar with doing slides and things like that. I'd like to go through that with you all again. It does have a lot of things in there that I get regular questions on, such as the easy reference guide to local rules and the championship calendar. I love to answer your questions. I think I'm pretty quick, but sometimes it might be easier for you all to just kind of, go on there and find it for yourself. The third thing we have is a Facebook group, and I know some people aren't wild about Facebook for various reasons, but I encourage you to look at it. And sometimes we post pictures and I try to put news. I try not to put anything on there that's kind of nitty gritty or rules oriented. So if you have pictures you want to put up of your team or something, send them on. Any questions so far as I go racing through this agenda? Okay. The ratings. This may be an interesting topic in about 8 weeks. I think you all know that the NTRP ratings were not run in 2020 for the 2021 season. So we've been using the same ratings for almost 2 years. The new ratings are going to be published in early December, and I think there will be at least Peter Shutter, who's is the league, what is his title? League coordinator, league director, league manager, I think, has said that there will be probably more changes than are to be expected. I don't know whether that'll impact the Cape quite as strongly because as one gets older, one's rating tends to level out, but in some of the areas where there's 18s and 40-year-olds, it may be that someone has developed a fair amount over the last 2 years, and it'll get recognized in December. Now, when it gets recognized, if they go from a 3.5 to a 4.0, and they're on a team that doesn't accommodate a 4.0, they cannot play on that team. So I think we'll wait and see, what names come up, and we'll talk about what to do. But I think you all probably pretty much know who your players are who are moving up rapidly. So you shouldn't be totally surprised to see some of them move up to a higher level. And we'll deal with those on a case-by-case basis when we get to that. Okay, regulations. I've gotten a couple of comments, questions this year about various regulations that we have here on the Cape. A lot of them can be changed. Most I have to run through Lance. So I'd like you to think about this type of a thing because there is a process for this and it gets dealt with in the springtime. The one issue I've heard about the most is changing the way we select our league winners from team wins to individual wins. Each has its own strong points. We have always used team wins, but 1 year when you come out and the other team is in first place and you're in second place, but you won more individual matches, sometimes you think we should change that rule. Think about it. And if someone wants to make a case for changing it, we can have a discussion and be happy to entertain that. The other thing that comes up once in a while, is the matter of whether or not we would want to rank the number 1 position higher than the number 2 or number 3 position in determining points won for an individual match. I think, Christy, I'm right, some of the local areas do this already, I think, to use the individual wins as the criteria.
Yeah, nobody's weighted right now. Western Mass has been in the past.
Mhm.
And they're kind of entertaining it again. Some of the other sections do it. The Eastern section in New York, it does it. It just is a kind of a preference, and it's a way in some cases to keep people from stacking their lineups.
Mhm.
But that again, yeah, that's, if somebody wants to put in a regulation change proposal for that, everything goes to committee and everything gets discussed.
Right. And
Just
but
for a
the
little
thing,
background, Barbara, that
Sure, go
used
ahead.
to be how it was in Eastern Mass, and that was changed around 1999 to go to the way it is today.
okay, do you remember, Lance, what the case was for changing it? I mean,
From what I recall was it really wasn't doing what people thought it was going to do. There's always ways to beat a system.
okay.
So that was the reason it was changed.
I also, and correct me if I'm wrong, if we were to change it, it would only apply to local play and not to sectional play. Because I hear more fussing at the sectional level as to, whether or not other teams are stacking or not. I don't get too much noise here per se on the Cape. So, I mean, just be aware if we were to change it here, when you went to Beverly or to Woburn or Winchester, the other teams from the other local areas, anybody there could do what they want to do with their lineup. So it wouldn't settle that particular issue. So I'm not sure whether or not the inclination would be to change it here and not have it change as you advance to different championships. So think about that. But just what I want to say is, if you have a regulation that you are having a problem with, or you think it could be made better or think it can be changed, check in with me and I'll check with Lance, because we have done very little changes in the regulations, and the process is something I have to get myself familiar with. So just think about that. But you also
Barbara,
have to say it.
there's a form that's filled out to propose a regulation change, which includes justification for why the change should be considered. And
Okay.
that's the process that needs to be used.
I think that might actually be on our information page, I think, but I'm not sure. I'll check to see if it's not there. I'm pretty sure it's there. We'll put it up, and then if someone is interested, they can find it there. Let me write that down. Okay. Next thing I have is the upcoming leagues, and they're all pretty much the same as last year. We tend to settle into a pattern and a routine. The only real change I have is that the mixed 18 and over 7-0 is being moved back to be a mixed 40 and over 7-0. Of the 60 people who were on the 2 teams, only 2 were under 40. So I think I've kind of given up on trying to get younger players through that process. We did have a new younger men's team, 18 and over 4-5, and I hope that will be something that we can use to get some of the really younger players, to play. If I get 1 or 2, they have friends and it starts to build. So I'm hoping that team out of Sassuat goes on again next summer. The other things we're thinking about here is we did a combo league. It's actually a 2021, but it's playing now, where it's an odd number NTRP. It'd be like 5-5, 6-5, or 7-5, and we have a women's 7-5 league, which is a 3-0 and a 3-5, and that's fairly competitive. And they seem to be having a good time playing it. So I would entertain that. I had thought about using it for 5-5 to get the 2-5 women and the 3-0 women out there, or on the higher end for the men, the 4-0 and the 4-5, because that would kind of give a tighter bracket and we would be able to perhaps get more players that way. But I want to wait till the regular season kind of gets into place, and then I'll work on the combo league. There's also something called tri-level, which I'm not going to try to describe right now because we're still waiting to get the official regulations, and I don't want to say something about what it is and then have it be different. But basically, you can have a line with 4-0, a line with 3-5, and a line with 3-0, and they can play at different times. But let me get the information on that. I think it would be very helpful for some of the maybe some of the higher level players to kind of have more specific competition with a regular partner and then go forward. And there is advancement to nationals for that, right, Kirsty? I mean, that's a national advancement league.
Yeah, we'll have sectionals in January on the, what's the holiday in January? Is it Martin Luther King?
That's Martin Luther King, yeah.
So
yeah.
that's when sectionals are. Those will be in Western Mass, and then the tri-level nationals a little bit later in March.
Okay.
And I think this year it's in Southern California.
A new place to go to. Well, let me get the information on that, and then we'll see if we can get something. It doesn't take a lot of people, which makes it very attractive. Christy, you're presently working on the local regulations and things like that. Okay, we don't expect anything really different to come out of that. I don't think there's anything different nationally. No, okay.
No.
Okay. An easy topic, but one that's caused a lot of confusion is the whole team. I do send out all of these emails to people. Maybe I send too many, telling them I'm the whole team and to let me know before they join another team. And inevitably they register on the team and then write to me and want to get reimbursed. It doesn't work that way. If someone's on the whole team, all they have to do is to email me or call me, and I just drag and drop them from the whole team onto the team they want to be on. I've sent a list recently, I guess, to all the captains so they would know who is on that list. So in case they're recruiting some of them, they can tell them to kind of get in touch with me, to do that. But inevitably somebody says, I didn't read all your emails, and not much I can do for them at that point. The other thing, just a couple of reminders here on the local rules. You're supposed to be registered before you play a match. I mean, we don't have too much of a problem with that, but it is a little bit kind of disconcerting when a player shows up for the first match and nobody's there to get on their computer and register them. Please try to make sure they're registered before they play in a match. The registration fee is $23. The maximum match fee at a club is $20. It can be less. Sometimes it has been less here. It just depends on the club. When I publish your schedule, please take a look at it just to make sure I haven't made a mistake. I think we do a pretty good job of reviewing these things a number of times before they go out. I can always, it's not hard to change these things. I don't want to take the whole thing down and blow it up and change it over. But if for some reason there's a date in there that's not workable, that's easily changed. As you might, coaching is not allowed, and that means almost everything that you would do to communicate to your players. Some people think it's okay to wave, it's okay to go like this. It's not okay to do that. You're not supposed to make any kind of gesture, signal, or interaction with the players on the court. You have to sit there like they do in the stands for the national, for the US Open and wear sunglasses and just kind of put a poker face on, but you're really not supposed to make any kind of gestures. When it comes to score entry, either one of the captains can put in the scores. Whoever gets home first can do it. I would just like to see them all in within 48 hours and that to be confirmed within 48 hours. If there's a mistake, just let me know. There's a form for that, but most of the time the emails that I get are sufficient to kind of make the change as long as if both captains agree, it's easy. If there's a difference of opinion, then it just takes a little longer to work it out. Okay, rescheduled matches. The home team provides 3 dates to the visiting team, and hopefully you can pick another date. If you have any trouble, get in touch with me and we'll try to work something out. Again, sometimes these things get a little sticky, but they all work out in the end. And that's all I have to say. And that was all of 25 minutes or something like that. Any questions on what I've said or any questions on anything else?
No.
Oh.
Go ahead, Ann. We see your hand. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Hi. I have a player who's lost ground during COVID and wants to reduce her ranking. How would we help her with that?
So the best thing, is she computer rated? Do you know?
Yes.
So when
Meaning it's there on the site, USTA
and
site.
there's a letter C by it, like C as in cat.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, well, if she's computer rated, she'll have to wait until the till we run the NTRP year ends in December.
December.
If she's self-rated, she can go in and do an appeal, and then it goes through a committee to see if she's eligible through that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
I actually, and I think I know who you're talking about. It's someone who hasn't played for the last year and
Yes,
just really feels like she's a 2-5 rather than a 3-0. I can go, I can, and I think she's over 70 also. So there's a fairly good
not
chance
yet,
that would, not yet.
not yet,
Almost, all right, yeah, well, but
almost.
okay, I will, if you want, have her get in touch with me, because I don't like to track people down on stuff like this, because I don't want to encourage or discourage. But if she wants to know how to do it, I'd be happy to help her.
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Barbara,
Mhm. Oh,
the
Peter,
rating changes that take place in December, do they affect nationals at all?
the rating that you use for your nationals is the one that's on the roster when you played on the team. So for
So
you, and so it doesn't affect, doesn't affect you guys.
Good.
Christy or Barbara, this is Ellen. Barbara, if I understood you correctly, you could go into a team in the fall as say a 3-5, but if you get bumped to a 4-0, when the ratings come out in December, then you've got to be off the team?
I don't think we have any, the teams we have now are all combined levels. Like if you have someone who's a 3-5 on your 7-0 team, she could be a 4-0 and play with a 3-0.
No, I'm not talking about combined. I'm talking about the 50 no teams are starting in October. They start in October as 3-5, and then somebody on that team in December gets bumped to a 4-0. Do they get kicked off the team? That's how your statement came out.
If we have a 3-5 team, yes, but we don't have any 3-5 teams coming in.
You have a 3-5, you have a 55-7-0 team
Right,
starting in October.
right. So if you're a 3-5 and you move to a 4-0, you can play with a 3-0. If you're a 4-0 and you move to 4-5, you're off the team. Because there's nobody for you to play with.
Okay. I thought you kept your same rate.
You're breaking up, Ellen.
Yeah, I got it, but I got it.
Are you worried about a 3-5 going to 4-0 or a 4-0 going to 4-5?
I think she would have a 3-5 going to a 4-0. If she doesn't have any 3-0s on the team, she'd have to add one
Right.
to keep her on the team.
You'd have to add a 3-0 to balance out to get that 4-0 player playing, correct?
Right,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, Nettie, a lot of times we've had 3-0, 4-0 combinations.
Right.
See, we're lucky right now, Ellen, that we don't have like those women's leagues we have in the springtime where there are 3-0, a 3-5, and a 4-0, where they may be all 4-0s on the 4-0 team. If somebody moves up, then they can't be on that team because there's no headroom for them there.
Okay.
Okay,
Gotcha. Thank you.
thank you, Nettie.
Welcome.
What else do we have out there?
I have a question. I would like to play at 40 plus team, for example. I'm not 40 yet, but I will be in New Year's, after New Year's. Can I still register after New Year's for this team?
You can, January 1st, you can play 40 and over, even if you were born on December 31st.
Okay,
You can register as of January 1st, Lana, yes.
Okay, good.
Even if you're 50, even if you're 39 and a half, you could play on January 1st, as long as you turn 40 in 2022.
Okay, I see.
You're not 40 yet, though.
But soon. Soon.
She looks like she's 25. That's my problem. All the 40-year-olds look like they're 25.
Thanks.
Nettie, no questions?
I have a question.
Hey, Lisa.
I joined late because I was trying to do it on my computer and I had to reload Zoom or something. So, did you talk about the ending the matches 5 minutes early and assessing the situation for tiebreakers then?
Not in detail, but the local rules have all of that, and we changed that so that it would conform to like what Mid-Cape was doing. So at 5 minutes on a time match, 5 minutes before the end of the match, you stop where you're at, and if somebody's ahead by one game, they win that set. If they're not, they play a 1st to 5 tiebreak. But it's
That's
5 minutes before.
Sorry, that's a rule for all USTA teams.
Yes,
Just
yes. We
for
changed.
teams.
Yeah, we did change that last year because there was a lot of confusion because Mid-Cape had revised their town team and their rules, and it was getting very, very confusing. So we changed that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the way it's written. I can send out the local rules again if you want, but now that you're captaining a team, you might want to, it's very confusing to the players even before the change. So it's worth going over, or at least making sure the players have a copy with them out in the court so they can all sit there and look at it and hopefully decide the right answer when they read the answers.
Well, when the rules that are written out, on one of them says time limit 1.5 hours. So it's really it's not 1.5 hours anymore.
Well, the time limit's 1.5 hours, but you stop at 5 before to assess how you're going to finish up that last 5 minutes so that it hopefully stays within 5 minutes and you're off the court within regulation time.
Right.
You know?
But one of my players thought that was more of a discrepancy because it said 1.5, but then why do we have to stop 5 minutes early? But I just said, do
Well,
it.
the reason for that is because many times there would be other people coming on the court after us.
Yeah.
After a match, and we want to be sure we're off the court in 1.5 hours.
No, I get it. I'm just saying one person said it says 1.5 hours, so we should play for 1.5 hours. And I'm trying to, they're
Are you
trying to.
talking-
fix the discrepancy.
I think that's a picky issue.
Barbara,
Yeah.
this is Ellen. I would suggest you send out the rule clarification, a whole, the formal sheet of how to do, that we end at 25 after or whatever, and what to do thereafter so that everyone is on equal paging and we can all make copies for our team.
I will send a copy to each one of the captains. I just don't send to all the players. So make
Oh,
sure.
no,
you have a
send it to the
copy.
captains. It's the
Yeah.
captain's responsibility.
And I think it's the last page is pretty clear. That's the one that has the chart on it. And if I remember correctly, that should make it easy for people to kind of follow that. But it is as Nettie says, the intent is to get people off the court in an hour and a half and to not start playing to end the last game at a minute to the end of the hour and then play a 1st to 10 tiebreak or something like that, which can go on for 15 minutes. That's what they're trying to avoid, is the really egregious running over of time.
Hey,
Just out of
Barbara, if we're playing at Willie's and there's no pressure for someone to come on the court, can we play untimed matches?
You can play on time matches, and a lot of Willie's, that seems to be the norm rather than the exception, because there's nobody coming on. In that case, and you guys do that a lot, you'll play untimed. And then what happens for the set tiebreak, it's 1st to 7 by 2. And the
Right.
second set is 1st to 7 by 2. And then you play a 1st to 10 by 2 tiebreak. So some of those matches, that we had on Saturday, it used to go for almost 2 hours, but there was no problem because there was nobody coming on.
But is that an option? We can say we want to
Yeah,
do that. And if-
the
But what if-
club has to approve it, and all 4 players on the court have to agree to do that. Because the
it doesn't even
default
have
is
to be everybody, each
supposed
court.
to
can
be
do it.
everybody. But the guys always want to do it, Peter. I mean, it's very
What-
rare.
Does it have to be all 3 courts have to do
No.
the same thing?
No. I've had times when one court's playing an hour and a half and one's playing 2 hours. They do that at Mid-Cape. They used to on Saturday afternoon when the guys played at like 3 o'clock.
Right.
I think the club closed at 5 and there was room at the end for them to play. But they should really, up front, the captain should make it clear what's going on, and each court should understand what's going on. They shouldn't be standing there at an hour and a half saying, are we playing timed or untimed? But the guys do play untimed a
But
fair
if
amount of
the
time.
visiting team says, I don't want to play, I want to play timed,
Then you,
They
Then you
have,
play
you have to
time.
play timed.
Then
Okay,
you play
good.
time, then you play
Okay.
time, yeah. And I think a lot of our confusion comes up when you get guys who always play untimed and they're on a mixed doubles team and the women are saying, but it's timed. And I think that's part of the problem that we have because the men will say, these are the rules, the women will say, these are the rules. And it
Right.
really is up to the 4 people on the court to decide, but the club has to agree. And it has to be very clear what you're doing. So there's no confusion at the last
Yep.
as you're standing there and figure out whether you're going to play what kind of tie break. The guy, you do pretty well with that. Just when you get with the women on the mixed I do get some questions on it. But it has to be all. 4
Hey,
people on the
Barbara,
court.
Shannon St. Pierre here. I have a
Yeah.
question. So say it's, another team's up and you get to that 5-minute mark, but you're in the middle of a service game. How do you, at 5 minutes and it's 30 love, how do you handle that kind of situation? You play the point out until.
You finish the
game out.
game. You actually, you finish the game.
Okay,
If you
so the
finish-
5-minute is just
Yeah.
a reference point until you
Yeah.
see where you are in the game.
Yeah,
Okay.
but you don't stop in the middle of a game. You finish the game out.
Okay, I didn't hear you say that. I thought it was a hard 5-minute stop.
No, you finish, I don't think anybody said that, Shannon, but you finish it out. So
Good.
if it's 5 of the hour and you're at deuce or something like that, you play until that game is decided, and then you figure out what you're going to do. But the biggest thing you should do at that point, if no one's ahead by 1 game, is to play a 1st to 5 tiebreak, which shouldn't
Sure.
take more than 5 minutes. I mean,
Sure.
if people move like they're supposed to move.
Okay,
My
thank you.
question is, what's the rest of New England doing? Are they doing, because I remember in Connecticut, they always book 2 hours. So this was a real adjustment over the last 18 months.
Christy, you can answer that because I don't know what they do.
Each local area has its own regulations for the amount of time, and some do play 2 hours. Rhode Island plays 2 hours. Eastern Mass typically plays 1 hour with a hard stop, but they do have some clubs that have some extra time. So it's up to the local area and the local regulations, but it's typically driven by the clubs. And some of the clubs don't want to allow 2 hours for matches, so they just don't.
Right, just to build on the Eastern Mass, for all UST leagues is an hour and a half. There is a caveat of how you end the match depending on whether you're a club with extra time or without extra time. And what that means is a club with extra time can finish, there's rules to how to finish the match to have it completed. If it's a club without extra time, then you basically play a couple sudden death points to finish a set and to decide the 3rd set if it's needed. And you can find those regulations on the Eastern Mass proper portion of the league website for Eastern Mass.
I think also some of the local leagues play no ad. They do not play out the deuces.
Eastern Mass proper is no ads. Some of the other state associations, I believe Connecticut, for example, does play with ads.
Yeah, we play with ads.
It's all about, the biggest challenge in Eastern Mass is the number of players versus the number of courts available. So no ad is prevalent.
Dave, go ahead.
Thanks. Barbara, I just wanted to recommend one topic and then a question. When you do send out the final direction for the season, can you really highlight clearly tie breaks and format of tie breaks within the set, and then for the match to win the match or not? That seems to be an issue almost every week. There seems to be debates on the courts. And as a captain, I've been hesitant to get involved in those discussions because I'm under the impression that captains aren't allowed to speak to those on other courts. So those are 2 topics. One, can you clarify, just make it as clear as possible? You've done a great job in your communication, but this one just gets complicated. Can you lay out tiebreak regulations within the match and then to win within the first 2 sets and then to win the match? That would be one suggestion.
I'd love to get it that way, David, so that people understand it. I get a little myopic though sometimes because I see it and I understand it. Maybe I could call on 1 or 2 of you to go over it to make sure that it is clear, because I know the players just stand out there with the piece of paper, and I think it's crystal clear. I mean, I don't know whether they just need a larger font or they need to have it done entirely differently sometime.
It
I
seems to
really don't
happen a
know.
lot. The other question was what I alluded to. Are captains allowed to address play on other courts if there's a question about anything?
No,
No.
nothing.
The answer
nothing.
to
So
that
that's
is no.
why that clarification on tie breaks is going to be really important.
I would love it because a lot of times I'm sitting at Mid Cape and people are at the glass there and I know what they're asking.
We've
I
seen
know
it.
the answer, but I
I know.
can't answer them and I
Yeah.
can't answer you. And they think I'm out of my mind because
They
know
do,
I
they
know
said
the
that.
answer. But
Yeah.
I can't do that because it would be perceived as coaching. I mean,
Yeah.
and I just,
So
can't do
just
it.
to take a step back on this, Barbara.
Yeah.
The Cape has regulations which talks about how the scoring works for the matches.
yes.
Captains, if they have questions on that, they should review it with you or set up another call like this to go through it. The players need to make sure they understand it and they have a copy of the regulations with them on court. The biggest problem we find, and it's not just in the Cape, it's Eastern Mass and some of the other areas, and not just USTA leagues, is the players think they know the rules, but they don't know the rules and they don't have a copy of the rules with them. So once a player or players step on the court, they need to determine how the match is going to end, but based off the regulations. They cannot ask a player on an opposite court. They cannot come off court to ask anybody in the lobby. Once they do that, that becomes a grievance, which we're trying to avoid. And Nettie knows that too well.
Yeah, I think the tough part is that, this end of match stuff tends to be very, very heated because it sometimes decides who's going to win the match. I mean, it's not like a neutral kind of a discussion about something. It can be decisive in terms of how you finish out the match, and people get very, very upset about it. But it's Dave Sugar. I will take a look at what we have written, and I will try to get it clarified. I fear it's going to be 2 pages of tiebreak, instruction. But yeah, I think that's our biggest problem is interpretation of the tiebreak procedure.
So Barbara, I take that a different way is ask, Dave and some of your other captains on the call is where there could be additional clarity versus you taking a stab at it right now, because you've seen it, I've seen it. If there's something that's confusing, we certainly want to address it, but we don't know what we don't know.
Right, good point.
So I would like to give an action to all of you captains. If there are questions, please get them to Barbara and we can try to address them and clarify it in the regulations at hand.
And for my part, I'll try to get a copy of the most recent, because I don't think there's any changes of the most recent easy local rules, not the big long one, but the one that just goes over the things that the captains and the players really need to know, and then we can go from there. Good point. I think that's a good idea for finding out where we need clarity.
Barbara,
A question about the, if we're going to play an untimed match, would we do a 7-point tiebreaker at 6-6 then?
Yes,
First to 7?
yeah, first to 7 by 2.
Thank you.
And then you get into discussion of whether it's going to be Coleman or not, but we can cover that some other time.
Barbara, sorry.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Barbara, on clarification, when you send out the clarifications for the ending of the game, I think there needs to be clarification of everyone agreeing on what the clock reads. Because in the past, people said, oh, we've got 30 seconds left. And so they sort of play on that. So there's got to be clarification of exactly everyone agreeing on the clock and what it reads.
Sometimes people take a phone and stick it on the end thing there. So, because that's fairly clear because you don't know how many seconds, it just, when it flips over, it's over. I've seen people do that. For those of us who wear watches that have a digital thing on it, you can say it's Ellen's watch, and then you have to say it's, got 2 minutes left, and then when it's 5 of, you say it's 5 of, and then you finish out what you're doing. But to look at the clocks on the wall that that have second hands, or some of them are all, can be 3 different clocks at 3 different times.
Right. The
Mhm.
phone idea is a really good idea. I had not thought of that myself. So the phone idea is a very good idea.
And
So
assigning,
put
I,
that,
assigning,
I gotta say,
Nettie,
we have to use the clock on the wall that everybody can see. You cannot, at the end of a game, and if you're up, okay, I'm checking my watch to make sure we don't have another few seconds.
right,
It
that's
has
what
to
I'm
be
worried about.
something that everybody can see and agree to, and you agree to that when you go on the court.
Some people
Right.
look from one end of the court and it looks like one thing, and the other end of the court looks like something else. And I go to the middle of the net and I look at the court, at the clock,
So
and there's
we'll make that a rule. Stand in the middle of the court and look at the clock.
there is a second hand, so you can tell when it's, 7:29 and 30 seconds, and you can see the hand going around, and people suddenly want to get something to drink, or they want to dispute something, and then they wait till time runs out and they win.
Well, and I think it's important to understand in the rules, what is the time, number of minutes, seconds, whatever, after a game is over, that people can take as a water break.
Yes.
And that needs to come into play. There's no question, because that's a legitimate time for people to take a drink. So it's 90 seconds, or 30 seconds, whatever it is, let's write that down. And that's governs. And if we're within the time of that and the game is over, I think that's, you call the game.
well, we do, well,
ahead.
that is kind of set, because there's, so much time between games, there's so much time at the end of a set. I mean, you shouldn't be taking water during a tiebreak or something like that.
I
There's no
agree,
time
but
there.
that's not something, I don't think that's something you can say if people are accustomed to having a drink, and there's a legitimate rule that says you have 90 seconds between game, between end chain, changes of ends or whatever, the end of a game. I think whatever the rule is needs to be is the same rule at the end of the match.
And Nettie, to your point, we don't spell that out specifically in the local regulations, because that comes out of the code, which is part of Friend of Court.
Mhm.
Well, I've seen it come up a few times where they finish the game. The exact second that they finish a game, they look at the clock and is it when you look at the clock at the end of the game, or if you have 90 seconds, is it at the beginning of the 90 seconds that you check the score? Do you know what I mean? That's not very clear. Some people want to look right after the game is over. And then some people say, well, we have 90 seconds until we start the next game. And by then it will be, 7:25. So we win. Do you factor in the delay of the 90 seconds, or is it as soon as you finish the game?
They have 90 seconds between games. They don't have to start that next game.
Right. So
I mean, I'm not saying, if you're changing over every 30 seconds for every game during the match, then all of a sudden, the last time you take 90 seconds, it's not going to look too sportsmanlike, but technically there's 90 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying if time runs out in those 90 seconds, then the match is over, right?
Right. If somebody's up by one game, yeah.
Okay.
At least that's the way I understand it. Christy or Lance, do you have anything? I mean, they do have the minute and a half.
Can I say something, Barbara? Most of the time we play indoors, we stay on one side for the whole set. We're not even changing sides, so it's like, I would be upset if we were down, 4-5 and it was my serve and, it was 54 after. I want to start the next set, I want to start the next game. And especially if you've been doing that all along, no one's been taking time. That would seem like very bad sportsmanship. And I think it would be better if we did with the time what we do with line calls. If it's close, you got to give it the benefit to the other team and give them a chance to play that last game, to make it 5-5 or something. I don't know. I mean, no one's going to be checking. I don't know. I would be really upset if there was a minute left and we didn't start a game.
That's fine, except still according to the friend at court, they get 90 seconds, whether they've taken it at all. And if you don't switch, that's fine. On the odd games, you still get 90 seconds if you want
Right.
to take them. So it does kind of, it can be a little frustrating at the end, but because those are the regulations, that's the friend of court. If they don't take any breaks, but they take one at that 90 seconds, they are still allowed to take that 90 seconds.
All
Okay.
right, Christy, who's going to time that 90 seconds?
You can time it on the,
I mean, according to what Lisa was just saying, say I took 10 seconds more. Who's making that call?
So let's take a step back. First off, these are unofficiated matches, right? So that's where the code comes in. So part of this goes to best faith. So if it's 91 seconds, nobody's going to be able to actually ascertain that. It's, we have to apply a little bit of common sense here too. And, sportsmanship, at the end of the day, it's about doing the best we can and playing as fair as we can for both ourselves and for our opponents. So to your point, nobody's going to actually sit there with a stopwatch because we don't have officials on the courts. But you have a ballpark idea of whether somebody is delaying or taking excessive amount of time.
I'm just saying, I just wanted to clarify because it could be 7:24 and it would be over because the 90 seconds hasn't started yet. And then
If somebody on the court says, okay, we have 90 seconds, the game is over, and wherever we stand right now is where we are. And because there's 90 seconds, you can't argue with that. If everybody on the court agrees to play one more game because there's still a minute, then you play one more game.
right, well, if they were ahead and they didn't want to play another game because they didn't want to make a tie, then I've been on the court where someone's saying, we finished the game, it's 7:25, we're done, we win. And the other side said, we have 90 seconds to start the next game. So,
Well, that's past the 7:25 then, so they can't.
right. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but I just wanted to know if the 90 seconds is included or not. But it sounds like it is included.
If it's 7:24, they don't have to start another game. If it's 7:23 and a half, then you got a problem because they're going to be counting the seconds at the end.
Right, well, some of them do. Okay,
And that comes down to mutual sportsmanship.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, I think what we're gonna do with it is that I will send out a copy of the local regs, and then please, all of you, if you have a place there you think that it needs additional clarity, let me know. If there are some of you who would like to work with me on that, I would appreciate it, because again, I'm very myopic with these things. I write them, I don't see, and I kind of understand the rules. Sometimes I don't see where there's lack of clarity, but clearly there's lack of clarity because there's a lot of discussion on the court on these issues.
Barb, I'll help. Barb, I'll help out. Send me whatever you're thinking about as far as a draft, and maybe we kick it around a little bit.
Okay, thank you, David.
And on behalf of everybody on this call too, I don't say this to see if there's any benefit towards my team by the end of the year, but maybe there will be. But thanks for everything you do. You do a great job with this.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara.
Amen to that.
Does that benefit my team at all, Barbara, by saying that?
Absolutely. I'm going to come to Falmouth and I'm going to cheer for your team.
Okay. I hope there's a benefit there.
I split my time. I
know.
one team one time.
I've been watching. I hope there's a benefit there.
I also want to say thank you, Christy, too, for taking on this new role.
Yeah.
Thanks, you guys. It's been a little bit of a ride this year, so.
Well, you all have done a great job.
Yeah.
You, Barbara and Lance and all the captains, they've been great.
Have been. So, anything else from anybody?
Yes, before we go, can I just say, Shannon, please contact me. This is Peter Weinman. Please contact me about our team,
good.
your team.
You got it, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
All right, fine.
Okay, are we done?
I think I'm done. I want to thank you all for being on the call. We had a good representation and, you know, in spite of all the stuff on the ending things, and that was very well done. So thank you for that. I like working with all of you. So, you know, we'll have a good season this year.
Yeah, before we go, we have Lance and the Eastern Mass State Association has raffle prizes for us. So, all right, what we're doing 2, is that right? 2 $15, Lance, you're gonna have to correct me, Dunkin' Donuts cards? Is that
That's
right?
correct.
Okay, so see, they're all in the little cup.
Oh,
Can we audit to make sure there's one for each of us in there?
Everybody's name, so I'm gonna pick out 2
Trust you.
names. You trust me?
I trust you, Christy.
Okay, so the first one is Anna.
okay, Anna, yay.
Yay.
Ann.
I'm
Okay.
excited.
I'm sorry, Anne, I'm sorry.
That's right.
And the second one is Chris. Christina.
Christina.
Chris.
Yay!
Oh,
Hey.
Right, thank you.
that's it, Chris.
So is somebody gonna mail them to, I have to give Lance their address. Is that the deal?
Yeah, so Barbara, they will be e-gift cards, so they will come via email.
Okay, email,
in the next
okay.
couple days.
Okay, I will send you Ann and Chris's emails, okay?
Thank you very much. And
Thank
you
you.
all
Thank
for
you.
supporting USTA tennis. We
Hey.
greatly appreciate all you do.
Yeah,
All
thank you,
right,
Lance.
thanks, everybody.
All right.
Let me just.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Anna.